So getting back to how Mouse ruined comics.
Okay.
All right, 30 seconds. Your 30 seconds are up. No more boomer music.
Ladies and gentlemen, kids of all ages, it's Wednesday. It is time for the Mattriarchy. Today we are discussing Dr. Doom and the recent developments in the MCU. But the bigger question we have is why, oh why, can't Hollywood get Dr. Doom right? So to have this discussion, we are going to be joined, as usual, typical, by Twitless and Cartoonicus. And we're sorry, I'm rushing us along because I know you guys have things you got to do, and I don't want to keep you too much longer than we need to. So, first of all, I think our amongst the three of us who've assembled, Twitless is the biggest Doctor Doom fan, and so tell me, Twitless, why do you love Doctor Doom?
Gosh.
May I answer that question for you, actually?
I mean, let me answer it.
2 words. Diplomatic immunity.
I mean, that's part of it. I mean, the catbird seat is a great place for a villain to be. I think I've always... There are a lot of things that people will say about Dr. Doom, but I don't know if I've seen some people... I don't think I've seen anyone phrase it this way, but I do like the way it sounds. I think Dr. Doom is Macbeth in power armor. And I think that just makes him fascinating. The thing about Macbeth was the fact that you had this villainous character whose main flaw was his ambition, essentially. But ambition itself is not, it's also a good thing. So his ambition led him into some very, tragic and evil territory, but wanting to be king isn't itself a sin. And Stan Lee kind of said it something similar, because he said Dr. Doom wants to rule the world, but that what's interesting is that wanting to rule the world is not a crime. It's not like Spider-Man's rogue gallery, right? Where it's like most of them are just guys who, want to like rob banks or do, mobster level crime, who are very enmeshed in criminal activity in a criminal mobster kind of way. Dr. Doom has these grander ideas, and at the end of the day, he kind of wants power so that he can make the world perfect and a better place. Now, obviously, it's going to be perfect according to what he sees it as, but a lot of times, Dr. Doom, when he's had moments to take over things, and there's a great moment in one of the cartoons that says this, where Doom's like, I've gotten rid of disease. I've eliminated poverty. I've basically made the world perfect and utopian. And it's just, the only thing you got to do is just recognize that I'm in control. And this makes him just a fascinating and compelling character. Also, he's a techno warlock. So there's a lot to like.
He dual classes nicely.
He does.
Yeah. So my first exposure to Dr. Doom was from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, the cartoon, and from the Spider-Man comics in the newspaper strip, because I wasn't exposed to floppies until I was in middle school, just about. But I was a big fan of the newspaper comics, which, just a side note, am I the only person who was annoyed because that it seems like popular, like, comic scholarship, like, wants to ignore newspaper comics?
I wouldn't
don't
know. I haven't
who
been there in a while.
I don't see the
Yeah, I don't mean like the full-on academics specifically, but the popularizers, like that they seem to like ignore the history of all that stuff. Anyway,
well, then we need to do another stream.
I think so, but we'll talk about that some other time. So, yeah. But I was first exposed to Dr. Doom then, and I couldn't understand like why he was a big deal at all, right? And then because I didn't really know his origin story, I didn't know the connection to the Fantastic Four. I just knew that he was an occasional Spider-Man villain from these mass market materials, and I never really understood why. But it was just sort of weird. So I never really got in to Doom until much later, of appreciating what he has to have with it. But I do love the idea that he's somebody who is not a typical comic book villain, right? He doesn't see himself as primarily as a victim. He just wishes everybody would listen to him. He really has the right answer if everybody would just listen to him. So it's like the idea that his little fiefdom that he kind of rules with an iron fist. They're all cool with him. Nobody for the most part has any kind of problems with being in an autocratic state because he manages it all really well. So there's no uprisings or anything. And that's the kind of thing that it's like, okay, well, the guy's a totalitarian and I don't like that. But if the people wouldn't vote him out anyway, then what do you do with that?
And I think there have been some people who've like tried to like write it differently. And one of the things I think is a good test of how I think I mentioned this on another stream. I said that there's like a bar of for art actually, where I said, there's a bar where you sell this character well or you don't, because he's got some weird elements, right? He's got the green, he's got kind of the tunic idea, and a good artist knows how to sell that and make it look really good, and a bad artist or not a very talented artist just makes it look tacky. And right. I think that the same thing applies to writing his character as well. There's like another Doom bar, and the people who are, I think, talented writers who are balanced, who understand complexity for both your antagonists and your protagonists, can take a character like Doom and they can make him interesting, fascinating, compelling, and even someone you kind of root for, even if he's the bad guy. Whereas I've seen plenty of writers who get this character and all they just don't know what to do with him, and so they just make him a screaming lunatic, like a yelling lunatic. And they think that just Doom referring to himself in the third person is just what makes, I just have to make him refer to himself in the third person and yell, and I've written Doom. And it's like, what's interesting is that some of the best moments of Dr. Doom, moments like Byrne, when Byrne and Claremont were doing stuff with Doom and the X-Men, some of his best moments were very subtle and sly, very subdued moments where he's, psychologically manipulating people or playing people against each other in a okay. And then there's this. All right.
Sorry, but I pick a bad time to interrupt you with this.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to look this up because this was crap that, I don't know if it was it Tom Brevoort? I was trying to look up who said it.
I can't remember.
There was an editor, because people, this makes me miss John Byrne, because John Byrne refused to let stuff like this stand. And whenever someone took Doom and did something stupid with him, Byrne would like find a way to say, and this happened once, and he basically, someone did something with Doom that Byrne didn't like, I think like undersold the character. And then Byrne just retcons it by having Doom come in and say, Doombot number 9,800 or whatever, you're malfunctioning. And he finger guns and like blows it up. And that was Byrne, because Byrne had a very, pretty long run on Fantastic Four. So he got to kind of, plumb out who Doom was for quite a while. And so when he detected that someone wasn't giving the character a lot of respect, he was able to just hand wave it and say, "No, it was a Doombot. You're not gonna get away with disrespecting my character."
Well, and the funny thing about this whole Squirrel Girl piece, which let's be honest, this is funny.
I hate it.
There's no way it's not funny.
It's great because it's Squirrel Girl, right?
It's
one
technically.
person to take him down.
I don't necessarily mean it's to be appreciated or it's fine or it's high in any kind of sense, but I mean, this is the high-low divide, right? This is Mad Magazine funny.
Sure, if it were in Mad Magazine, I'd probably laugh. The fact
See that, and I see, that's the dividing line there. Is this canon or is this a joke?
See, that's right, exactly. So the problem is that, like I said, John Byrne would have said that's a Doom bot or whatever. He would have hand waved it. But I don't know if it was Tom Brevoort or somebody who recently said all of Squirrel Girl's victories are canon and no one can ever say otherwise. And so it was like every time she's beaten Galactus off panel or Thanos or whatever, like, and it really, if you want, here's my problem. Totally have your because Marvel had a whole line called "What the," which is where the Santa Doom story comes in,
right?
And
I think this may have been in a "What the" too.
No, this one wasn't. This was like, I think, a Spider-Man book. This was not "What the."
Okay, that could be.
So "What the" was literally just Marvel's like Mad Magazine. That was their attempt to do it, and that's fine. But if you want to get invested in the storyline, having moments like this can really undermine a character. Because if you really like, for example, John Byrne's take on the character, where things were more somber and serious and interesting and compelling, having this just really just like takes you right out of it. So you kind of have to just ignore it.
And
I've always thought
one of the things too about the continuity of this that doesn't make any sense is Doom has an impenetrable metal armor, and squirrels do not chew through impenetrable metal things.
He's a force field. Like, I'm sorry, there's too many.
Yeah, there's too many lines there's too many defeaters between the Squirrel Army and Doom. Even if he's totally covered by the squirrels, it's to the point where he couldn't stand up again. A whole CG wave of squirrels,
He can electrify the armor. We
electrify them and stand up out of their corpses. Right.
So a better moment
away from them. It's it's one of those things where there are too many. Incinerate them.
There's a really good scene. I don't remember which issue, but there's a very good moment where Thing comes at Doom and one by one defeats all of his defenses and then like crushes his hands. It's the moment where Doom got his hands crushed. And it's a really good sequence because Thing earns it. Because he's because Doom throws everything at him and he step by step kind of like counters he just kind of like pushes through it. Well, and that was a really good, even though I'm a Doom fan, I don't want to see him go through that, but like it's something that like it was memorable and it was treated really well.
Well, and it plays with, and one of the great things too is about that scene too is it plays with the intrinsic characters of both Thing and Doom, right? Doom's one weakness and his venal sin is pride, right? That's it's hubris, and so that's the one way he's really, and he would underestimate Ben because Ben's stupid, or at least stupid compared to Doom, right? And so Doom would definitely, Doom has never respected that a guy like Reed could hang out with a guy like Ben. Like, why would you even call him a friend? He's so far beneath you. He's like your pet, right? And so that's the thing. But Ben Grimm is all heart, and it's the fact that he would step by step, go through this and be the point-to-point defeater is one of those things. I keep hearing Doom music in my head.
That's fair.
That's fair. But that would be that's in keeping with Ben's character because he's all heart, and so that rising above the struggle and all that other kind of stuff, and so that's one of those things that it's earning it perfectly in line with the nature of the characters. So I think that's really there's a symmetry to it, all of that.
Yeah, no, and some of his when he's been bested by the Fantastic Four, even if some of them were campy at times because you have Stan Lee just winging it. But Colin Lamping, whose character actually looks a little Doom-esque, actually.
Yeah,
there's some influences there. Get this off the screen. Pull my screen up. I'm tired of looking at this garbage. Get rid of that. There we go. Iron Man versus Doom. Another great rivalry. That's the other thing about Dr. Doom that makes him a great character is Doom is very versatile. So I think one of the reasons why he became such a fantastic character is even more than Thanos, right? Because Thanos was like a great kind of dark side ripoff, but Thanos could really only show up as like Avengers, end of the universe kind of storylines, whereas Doom was very versatile, and he could show up in a Spider-Man story. There's some interesting Spider-Man story he's shown up in. He can show up in, obviously, his nemesis with Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four. He's great there. He can take on the entire Avengers if he needs to, and there's been some amazing moments of that.
And because of who he is, right? As a sovereign ruler, who is a hero to his people, he can also come in as the Deus Ex Machina clutch in a big cosmic story, and still be perfectly in character, and everybody and the heroes can begrudgingly have to acknowledge that their butts were saved by Doom, and that's a great to keep everybody human, to keep everybody humble. And so it's a really neat.
So the one thing that you're bringing up there is the fact that not only is he versatile in who he can be put into opposition with, because he's got this code of honor aspect to him. He's got this nobility, not just aristocratic, but also a sort of moral code, especially when he's being written well. Mark Waid kind of threw this out and did some garbage with him at one point that really pissed me off, where he trades in on a bunch of that. But when he's being written very well, he has this kind of code of honor because he has his own principles. They just happen to be in opposition to the heroes most of the time because he's more ruthless. He's not as, he doesn't have the same moral values they have. He has his own quasi-moral / amoral values. But because he has those, he can.
Well, he's the Ubermensch. I mean, he's literally the Ubermensch.
But without the sort of civic nationalist aspect, the selfless civic nationalist aspect that most superheroes tend to have in their DNA. So he's more self-serving. But because of the codes, the values he has, he has versatility in terms of being an ally or an enemy or both. He'll walk all over those lines in a story, which makes him a very interesting character. So people who are good writers get a hold of that and they go, wow, I can do so much with this guy. And that's where you can get some really great stories.
Though, beware, you're dangerously close to that point with me with Lex Luthor, where eventually I'm just going to want you to just shut up and make him a hero.
So what's interesting is because he's there's something about him that will never be heroic, because he's never gonna. Because of his that core of hubris that they've kept in his character. There's always going to be this sort of self-servingness to him, even when he's being selfless. And I think that keeps him at least on the edgy side of things. We've seen recent versions of Lex, like in House of Brainiac, where he's just like crying and basically being daddy. And I like the fact that even when Doom was being a father to Kristoff, it was kind of cold and distant, and you're here to serve a role in my country. Maybe it's the aristocratic thing that keeps that in check.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it, because
but that doesn't necessarily make a villain. That can just make a dark anti-hero.
Well, there's something to that, but I mean, like, I would agree with that to a certain extent, but at the same time, we are still looking at the situation where Doom is representing a nation, right? And so he's got the old world idea of monarchy, where he is the nation. As the monarch, he is Correct. The nation. He's the embodiment of the nation. So he's not going to allow in that position. He can it is not moral for the monarch to allow sentiment to detract from the nation, because he is the nation. So
one thing I would add to that, to end Cartoonicus's point as well, is no matter how heroic you make Doom, there's always going to be something holding him back, which is good to his character. from being just a hero, even a typical anti-hero, because if you compare him and Magneto, for example, right? Magneto went on an arc where he, because he's tied to this kind of civil rights angle, essentially, for want of a better word. And so he basically becomes a kind of Malcolm X figure, where even if he does things that are darker or not as or villainous, he's doing them for the right reasons, and he's still kind of but Doom always has this layer of self-interest involved, and again that hubris that's core to his character, and it makes him, like I said, gives him a little more edge, which I think makes him more interesting for a lot of reasons.
Yes. Oh, excuse me. Goodness sakes. Blah.
So one of the reasons we were having this talk is because Doom is now hitting the headlines recently because they're going to put him in the MCU.
Yeah. And here we have, we'll go ahead and pull up again this little tidbit for our conversation. Now, it was inevitable that the Doctor Doom was going to go into the MCU at some point.
Yeah.
And before we talk about the casting of Doom, I want to talk a little bit about why they've never gotten Doom right on the big screen. Right now, I barely remember Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, so I don't remember, and I don't think I never watched the Doom. The Doom, the Fantastic Four cartoon. So
there's been multiple ones. They've actually gotten They've gotten him right several times in animation, pretty darn well. But in live action, I think honestly, one of the closest ones with Roger Corman's portrayal. Oh, you don't have Roger Corman's version on that? Roger Corman.
Did I miss one?
Yeah.
Thought I got all the movie versions.
Nope, there's one you missed. Roger Corman's Fantastic Four, I think, actually came the closest, and he was never. Actually...
Oh, you're talking about the old '90s movie?
I don't know if that one was '90s.
So we've got the first two, the 2000s ones here, then the reboot, and then the upcoming one. That's all I know. That should be all.
Yeah, there was the Corman did a movie in the 90s that was never released.
It was 1994, yeah. And you can actually watch, I think, the whole thing on YouTube because it's been released essentially for the internet.
It was leaked to the internet. Excellent.
Yeah. So the
that's got to be one of Corman's last pictures, huh?
I mean, he only died this year, so he went on for quite a while.
He was retired for quite a while too.
That's fair.
I just don't know when exactly. I'm going to find out.
He continued to do films into the 2000s.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I sorry, Roger. I've really enjoyed a lot of his weekend pictures. That are really real stinkers, but they're some of them they've got such heart.
So I'm not saying it's like obviously a great.
Oh, he did the new Manchurian Candidate. Oh my god, that was really good. Sorry, not really good.
But Corman's, I've seen some scenes of Roger Corman's Fantastic Four and his version of Doctor Doom, and he captures the the sort of, monologuing, I'm a grand, statuesque, the aspects of his character get caught way better. It's cheesy, but ignoring the cheese, there were people who I remember seeing the comments. Yeah, that's one. And the costume is pretty darn close to the comics. And when he poses and, makes grand gestures, it's like, well, that's kind of what Doom is like in the comics. So it's I think the Corman one actually comes closest in a lot of ways.
Fascinating. So here's the question, right? If Roger Corman, who was a hit and miss as a director, but like I said, I think most of his stuff I've seen has a lot of heart to it, a lot of ingenuity with how to film on, shoestrings and everything else. Why haven't anyone else been able to recapture that? Because Doom in the
Fox.
Fox ones. That was horrible. Everything about that was terrible.
I have. It's not even.
I
Just
don't
infuriating.
hate the costume actually.
Well, I don't hate, and like as cheesy as those movies were, they didn't get the plots weren't great, but some of the acting wasn't terrible.
Okay, I have the answer for you. Okay, so I'm going to pull
this
something
off.
up. I have the answer for you, and a lot of this boils down to. Here, I'm going to share this with you. Give me 1 second. It boils down to Ultimate Comics.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And I'm not even making that up. So let me I'm going to share my screen real fast, and here we go. So this is Ultimate Dr. Doom. And let me scroll down here. You'll see the goat legs.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I remember that being stupid.
Here's the thing. I don't know if you guys ever read Ultimate Nightmare.
No.
Ultimate Nightmare was one of the first one of the big crossovers they did in the Ultimate comic book line, and I might be able to even pull up the scene. There is a moment in Ultimate Nightmare, I think, and Ultimate Nightmare was, I think, like a 2-part series, and but it all had to do with Ultimate Galactus. Okay, and Ultimate Galactus was not just a guy in a giant space helmet. It was basically a swarm of a hive mind intelligence of basically robots, and but that swarm was like the size of like a small galaxy. And so you'll remember this. This starts sounding familiar because this is all exactly
that was Galactus from the second movie.
From the movie.
Stupid.
Let me continue. I'm almost done. Let me continue because it actually gets even more. So what you start to see is the fact that a lot of what we got in early and even later Marvel films was, like, I think, deliberately planned from the Ultimate Universe. It was like the Ultimate Universe of comics was meant to be the cinematic envisioning of Marvel so that they could then make movies on those versions.
Right.
And the thing that made that
that was blatantly stated. There was the first issue after the first arc of the Ultimates has the Avengers sitting around having that conversation, and they say, well, who would play you, Fury? And he said, well, of course it's going to be Sam Jackson.
Sam Jackson, right. And
they expressly put that in the thing. I thought it was the cringiest damn thing I've ever seen.
Then Brian Hitch drew him as Samuel L. Jackson.
Well,
because Brian Hitch's style was to basically kind of do this sort of like almost tracing of photos. On top of that, in Ultimate Nightmare, there is a quote, there's a scene where Nick Fury is talking to Reed Richards. And again, kind of cast as as Samuel L. Jackson. And Nick Fury says, "Oh, well, you're just you never got many girls in high school, did you?" And Reed says, "No, I stayed in and studied like a good little nerd. And now that nerd is basically telling you what to do, and the only thing standing between you and annihilation." And that quote makes it almost entirely word for word into Rise of the Silver Surfer, the film.
Really?
So it is extremely clear that they are drawing from those. On top of that, so to bring it back to Dr. Doom, the version of Dr. Doom in the Ultimate Comics didn't have armor per se. He was also in the sort of intergalactic storm, I think, with the Fantastic Four, and he has his own cosmic radiation mutation. So basically he gets to be the Thing except with metal.
And that's what I was going to point out.
And that's why he has the goat legs.
Movies so far since the 90s one.
So to finally answer the question, why are they not getting Doom very well? It's because Ultimate Comics did a lot of experiments with characters and the directions they took them in those comics that they ended up making movies off of. Some of those experiments were actually pretty decent ideas. For example, I believe Ultimate Spider-Man, didn't he have the organic webbing?
Yes.
Okay. And that worked pretty well for the first 3 Spider-Man films. So not all of these experiments were duds, but they're for every 2 or 3, like, hey, that's a decent idea.
They didn't originate that in the Ultimate Universe either. Spider-Man 2099 had organic webbing.
I'm pretty sure they were drawing from Ultimate as opposed
Well,
to
it preceded it by
No,
like.
what I'm saying is that when
I
they
see.
made
You
these
mean in the movie.
movies,
Yeah, yeah.
they'd be
No,
pulling.
What I
from
was saying,
those
well,
comics,
part of the
yeah.
thing with Spider-Man, the Ultimate side note is almost everything in Ultimate Spider-Man was just, word for word.
I
was
know,
virtually word for word from the original. And so, like, there was very little originality with it, with the exception of making the Green Goblin an actual monster, right?
So right,
which Raimi had the good sense to ignore.
So the point here being is the fact that for every one of those experiments in Ultimate Comics that was like a good idea, there'd be like a couple duds that would just be stupid and dumb. And so unfortunately, they kind of pulled a chunk of the dumb ideas for Dr. Doom specifically when they adapted those films. So they ended up giving him the sort of like, he has this he goes on the ship with them. He gets his own mutation. He's got metal under his skin. This is all straight out of Ultimate Comics. They did that version of Dr. Doom as opposed to just giving him armor.
Well, and the frustrating thing about that to me is that part of the Fantastic Four was that it was loosely granted, but it was playing off of the 4 elements. And so then you have this idea where you have this fifth wheel that doesn't really belong into the thing, the business. So it's like, what the heck?
Feel like I'm kind of okay. I think you could sell I think it would be, I would accept the idea that he was on the ship and got something from it. I think
why not just a genius intellect?
I'd be fine with him getting. I'd be fine with him getting something. I don't having him have his armor be not armor, but like his skin is dumb. It takes away from this cool thing that he designed, cool super tech and cool super science. And in the first Fantastic Four film, the coolest tech thing he pulls out is a rocket launcher that he shoots at Johnny Storm. And it's just like, come on, like, give me a Doom bot. Give me something. The video game had more super science tech. The video game they made that based on the film had more.
Also, he was hardly much of a
Doom
diplomat
bots
in that movie either. It was like just this one rich guy walking around.
Yeah, they made him. They tried to do like a Smallville Lex thing, and it was really dumb. With him, it doesn't fit him. Storyteller says the fifth element was heart. Yeah, that's what Doom's power should have been. But yeah, so in my opinion, that's a chunk of the reason is that they're drawing from the well of these Ultimate Comics. And what's funny is that after the first story arc with this Doom with the goat legs, just the first story arc, they tried to basically erase this for like years. They're like, man, because like this got eviscerated in the comic book press and in the fans. People are like, why does Doom have goat legs? What are you doing? And the next time he shows up, I think it's drawn by Greg Land, I think. And Greg Land, and so I'll pull up the image. The next time that this shows up, Greg Land just draws him just as an epic, normal Dr. Doom type character. And like the goat legs are gone. And they only come back way later in the in one of the runs, and it's kind of, and it's, so there's this whole lore behind the whole thing, but in film they just have not. So this is Doom as drawn by Greg Land, and it's one of my favorite Doom designs in comics. It really sells the kind of traditional look, but adds a little cinematic flair there. It gives him the fur ruffle there.
Yep, little texture.
Yeah. So even in the Ultimate Comics, they said, hey, that version was kind of cringe, and they kind of dial back on it for quite a while until they actually bring it back for Ultimate Future Foundation. They released later.
So Fizz has a question in the chat. Why did all of Hollywood think the Ultimate Universe was the superior version of the characters? The bigger issue was not that they thought they were the superior version. That was the only version the Hollywood guys were aware of, because Hollywood did not seek out the Marvel properties. Marvel was seeking out the Hollywood people.
I think Marvel packaged the ultimate version as the version they thought they could sell to Hollywood.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Because selling
that was all part of, and that was part of Avi Arad's whole plan.
Some of it's not a bad idea. In the early 2000s, I'm actually glad that the arc we've gone on. In the early 2000s, right, selling the X-Men dressed up in their X-Men their X-Men costumes was never going to happen.
No.
It took until now before they were like, we can finally put Wolverine in his traditional looking outfit. And
you got to remember too that the Wolverine, the part of what pitched the Wolverine, I mean the X-Men movies, was the success of the Saturday morning cartoon series, right? But they're like, okay, the Saturday morning cartoon series is really popular, but we can sell this to adults too, right? And so, what do we need to change to make this for adults and teens? And they bounded off the Matrix, which was already playing with comic book ideas with it. So
and Blade, right? Obviously, because Blade had that.
Blade was Blade was barely changed from the. I mean, as far as the core of Blade.
But like the black leather aesthetic was like, hey, we can put all the X-Men in this and like not in the colorful costumes. What I like is the fact that superhero film has finally matured enough for people to go, no, I want to see the traditional outfits. Give us the traditional outfits, and people are able to make that work. I really like. I like how Wolverine looks in that new movie. He looks really good.
I will point out though, I don't think he has ever in a single film yet worn the mask.
Well,
who?
Wolverine.
No, he has worn the mask.
Has he?
Yeah, no, he did. They have scenes with it. That's what I'm saying. They do the whole thing. He doesn't wear it the whole film, but they have scenes where he puts it on. And the fact, and regardless of how you feel about the movie, the fact that we're at the point where people can say, no, we're going to do we're going to have a high fidelity comic book costume, and we're going to sell it, and it's going to work, and people can now believe in that, is a good thing for superhero cinema. There's a lot of bad things in superhero cinema, but occasionally it's nice to point out the positives. That's a positive. But it took a character arc of going through the ultimate interpretation of these characters before people were willing to start taking, I think, those risks.
Well, I got to admit though, I do still to this day prefer that first way of doing the costumes in that movie. And that ties into the philosophy I've talked about superhero costumes, where even just one or two small details can be the most iconic thing about a costume.
Completely disagree.
I know you would. But on that note, I do want to put up the image I've got on screen right now, where they did the exact same thing here, and probably created my favorite version of the Dr. Doom costume ever.
Okay.
Nope, hate it.
This looks like a diplomat to me.
No, it's trash.
This looks like a powerful person who runs a country.
No, it looks. And
I love how the elements combine together. He's fancy.
No. This is Lex Luthor at a costume party.
Yeah. No, sorry. Pass. Get that off the screen. Gong show. The Greg Land one sells it to me. The one I put up with, they put the fur on him. That works well. Anyway, so Doom has not been done very well in film. Animation, they've done some really good things. Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes had a great. See, this is again. I'm very, very happy that we're getting.
See, this actually makes me disrespect everybody involved with this. I am insulted by this image. I have never felt more degraded than when I saw this in the store. I'm like, that's fine. You know what? Screw you guys. I have so much negative interest in participating.
Obviously,
to be fair,
I'm done.
To be fair, Reese,
I may never buy another Marvel comic.
To be fair, all right.
Ryan Reynolds, you're fucking dead.
Let me try this though. Just as I hated the Squirrel Girl thing, but you accurately pointed out in a sort of Mad Magazine way, this is funny, even if you don't like it. This is also funny. Okay. This
I was
is
gonna
also
say
in that Mad Magazine sort of way. That is kind of funny.
this is
Yeah.
clearly something that would only happen in a Deadpool movie because it's that like there's one thing they don't do in these movies, and that's sincerity. Whether
No,
you
no,
like that or not
I
is up
disagree.
to you. I have no interest in watching them myself.
I disagree. I've seen the first two, and although I don't like, I've grown weary of Deadpool. I'm going to keep this point short because we keep it back to Doom. But I do want to point out.
With Deadpool.
But let me point out the fact that the Deadpool films will always have a special place in my heart for one reason alone, which is we got the best, without question. This is no, I will bear no argument on this. The best version of Colossus I have ever seen on film. He is.
Well, there's only been 2.
It's still miles better. The version of Colossus, that's Colossus. His costume is the perfect Colossus kind of looking costume. His voice is the perfect Rusky voice, and the heart of his character being a genuine superhero who cares about people, but is also very strong and taken seriously and genuinely. His character, his portrayal in those first 2 films, I still watch the clips just so I can watch the best Colossus I've ever seen, because he was just robbed in every other X-Men film they put him in. But my heart rests easy because I know there is at least one version of Colossus that is good. even if it's only like, I think it's 15 minutes total of screen time.
I should also point out that there might be a message we are missing here, and that it's not just that they look like ketchup and mustard, but that Deadpool and Wolverine go together like ketchup and mustard.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care. Yeah, I just don't care.
I got you.
Everybody involved should find themselves in some sort of horrible circumstance.
Again, credit where it's due. I love this version of Colossus. Holy cow, it's good. So I do have to give that shout out.
Yep.
They did Cable. Josh Brolin's a great actor. I think that version of Cable, there's some hit or miss in it. But by gosh, Colossus, they nailed it so hard. You can't do a better Colossus. If you do another Colossus in another movie, you have to get this guy and do the exact same character. I don't see how you can do him better. But
anyway,
Doom.
Back to Doom. So, and I think you're right on the money with the why haven't they been able to do it is the whole Ultimate thing, which I think the Ultimate Universe, while the original Phase 1 of the MCU, they definitely had aspects of the Ultimate Universe in it. They peppered enough of the classic 616 universe in there where I don't even know what that means. I'm laughing at Halloweener.
It's a joke about the ketchup.
Probably. Anyway, but yeah, but I think that is definitely a situation of what we have of problems that exist. So now let's go on to the topic at hand. The reason we're doing this whole stream, right? The reason we're talking about Dr. Doom, other than Twitless's deep and abiding affection for the character, is that Robert Downey Jr. has been announced to be playing Dr. Doom coming up here, which I have. If I could possibly let me see if I can imagine caring how I would feel about this, because as everybody knows, I'm very much over Hollywood.
Yes, but let's put it this way.
So
if there's one thing that they have managed to do with this, it's get us to talk about it.
That's true. I cannot imagine a story that would make this make sense. That isn't. Yeah, I can't imagine a good story that would make this make sense. I don't understand the insistence of Robert Downey Jr. himself. I don't think Robert Downey Jr. can give the sincerity, the lack of jocularity to a role.
I think he can. What I'm afraid of is that if they do, people will be pissed at it. And so like it's like then you kind of shot yourself in the foot. So even if he does do the role justice, people would go, well, but why isn't he Iron Man? I feel like it's kind of in a catch-22. If you do it wrong, you piss off the people who want to see the character genuinely. But if you do it genuinely, I feel like you piss off the people who really fell in love with Robert Downey Jr.'s just acting and how he does characters. So I feel like it's a really awkward, it's an awkward puzzle. I'm not saying they can't. I'm not saying they can't solve it, but I'm just saying that's what a challenge to.
So here's the thing. I'm calling it right now. They're going to use the multiverse, and they'll probably make it some kind of variant on Tony Stark.
So
no, that's theory crafting. We don't know what they're going to do. We can guess, and I have my own thoughts on that. I do want to point out one final thing before we jump into this, which is one of the reasons that we're in this boat to begin with. That hasn't been mentioned, just as a brief note, is the fact that the Fantastic Four film rights were owned by Fox for many years. And they had one of those deals that Sony currently has with Spider-Man, which is that they retain the film rights as long as they make a film within every decade or so. There was a certain amount of, it was 15 years. There was a certain time period. And if they didn't make a film, then the film rights would revert back. So the film that Roger Corman made was in fact a dummy. It was a shell game. They made a fake movie, never released it, but they fulfilled all of the quotas for keeping the film rights. So it was really sad because people who starred in the film, put their effort into it, thinking they were actually making a movie when in fact it was a scheme. So one of the reasons as well, the reason why that last FF movie, for example, got made, again, same thing. It's been X amount of years. We have to make another Fantastic Four movie or we lose these rights. So now that's no longer the case because Fox got bought by Disney. Disney now owns the whole kit and caboodle. So at the very least, you don't have to see a Fantastic Four film made by obligation alone every 10 years or so.
I didn't have to watch it before. The reason that this happened was because apparently, what's his name? Kang the Conqueror has not been working out for this phase.
Well, and here's the thing is, when I first heard about this, the Robert Downey Jr. pick, my first thought was Iron Lad from the Young Avengers comic, who was revealed to be an alternate future version of Kang, who saw his future and didn't want to be a supervillain, so he went back in time to masquerade as Iron Lad, and I thought that was a really fun idea of the use of time travel, and that was one of the interior conflicts within the Young Avengers series: is he actually going to grow up to be a villain, or is he actually going to reform himself and thereby change history? And I thought maybe they were playing with that somehow. Halloweener, who I think might be 7. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Anyway, it says Screen Rant he corrects himself. It's Screen Crush had an elaborate, compelling theory that Dr. Doom was the invisible hand behind all the MCU movies since Iron Man. If we found out that Doom had replaced Iron Man after the first movie, and that the reason Iron Man is the villain of the MCU, the unsung villain that no one will acknowledge that it's all his damn fault. If it was some sort of giant chess game and they pull that off, I might have to eat my words.
I don't think. Yeah, they won't do that.
I'm just saying, if they found a way to make that happen, I might be in again.
I think they're beyond being able to think like that.
I think you might be. I think you might be right. But I'm just saying, I really like the Usual Suspects. If you had a long con game and I got bamboozled, Usual Suspects style again, I would appreciate that.
All right, so I got an appropriate image to pull up since we're talking.
Well, Stark's sacrifice was already worthless.
So the thing about all this
that was exactly one of the reasons I hated Endgame.
Listen,
he should have been hauled out back and shot at the end of friggin' Infinity War. Right. It was his fault. Should have been publicly executed in front of everybody.
So here's the thing. They're talking about now. This may be more of a publicity stunt just to get us.
Share my screen. I got a picture of Robert Downey Jr. so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But negotiations of up to $100 million for this part, right? You don't put that kind of money into a single actor and take a gamble anyways.
That's
Oh,
not
yeah,
true,
you do.
right? That's
Oh,
not
yeah,
true.
you do.
They did the exact.
If-
they
if-
they did that with Dial of Destiny. The same company, by the way, Walt Disney did
If
the
you're-
exact. They took a huge risk when they did Dial of Destiny. They paid Harrison Ford $1 gajillion, and that film was abysmally created.
Right. If you have the chance of either breaking even, because all this stuff is just money laundering anyway, if you have the chance of breaking even or making $2 billion, you risk breaking even. That's you'd spend $100 million on a guy. There's no
What I'm
question.
saying is they're going to want to try to. They're going to be so incentivized to guarantee this as a success.
Well, no, they
That's
don't,
going
they
to
don't
be
have to.
driving every
The-
single decision they make, right?
The fact that me, possibly the most adamant, not necessarily vocal, but the most adamant critic of the MCU, is here talking about an MCU decision
Yeah.
on my show is evidence that they are already going to make money just from the buzz. Like, they don't have to produce. They could do an Andy
True.
Kaufman level prank
Well,
on
let
the
me
entire thing, and everyone would hate them, and they still will have made their $1 billion.
let me try this though. Cartoonicus, let's assume you're right though. Assuming you are correct and they are motivated to do it correctly, what does that mean for what you're saying?
I don't know. I'm just saying they would. I think they're going to be putting so much effort into it and taking so much time. This might not happen for another 5 to 10 years. If that's what it takes for them to feel like they're actually comfortable with doing it.
I don't think it would say 10 because they do need to seize because they have the buzz.
I'm exaggerating, but
the buzz will only hold. They do have to capitalize on it.
I feel like they
one thing I will say is that if they have the buzz, they know they have the buzz. They have to capitalize on it soon because it will die if they wait too long. So they only have like 2 to 4 years, I think, to capitalize on this. I think they do know that. You put this in the oven for 10 to 15 years and it's over. Robert, it's just they'll
I feel
strike.
like they
They'll
will
strike
either
while
have
iron's
to
hot.
play it super safe, or someone will have to come up with the most unique, creative thing that has ever been done in the entire MCU history.
All right, so I've got a couple of ideas. Let's spitball a bit here. Okay, so they are probably doing something with the multiverse, but they do know, however, Reese, that their multiverse stuff, and this is evidenced by the fact that they've canceled Kang. They know that none of the multiverse films, except for maybe 1.5 of them, I think, a Multiverse of Madness, I think, made money, and then the Spider-Man No Way Home made money, but that they can only count half of that on them. So that's what 1.5 of those films made money. So we just go off of money making. A lot of the multiverse stuff has not performed well. They still have to do stuff with it because that's probably how they're going to integrate their other properties. But setting that aside for a second, I think the thing that I am still trying to wrap my head around is that every time they have discussed this character, they have said, this isn't Iron Man. They have said Victor Von Doom. Robert Downey Jr. has said, I'm playing Victor Von Doom. I believe Kevin Feige has in fact said, we're doing Victor Von Doom.
Right.
This is the thing that makes me puzzled because, and it's how do they get from using this actor to that point? And so I see two options. Option A is they do some sort of like, in this alternate history, Tony Stark, blah, 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 blah. So that's option A. And we can talk about how we feel about that option. The second option is to simply ignore it and just say, and because here's the thing, and we do know if they do try to stick to Doom as a concept, Doom is almost never seen outside of that armor.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how that character is played. So in theory, they could do the option of we just use the actor. He's playing the character named Victor, and he's Victor. We don't acknowledge the fact that he played Tony. And honestly, I will say this: partly because Robert Downey Jr. has gone vegan. He looks like a different person. I don't know if you've seen some of those recent he does not look. He's aged a bit. He's gone vegan. He's gone skeletal. You could almost sell him as a different person with a little bit of makeup. So out of those two options, my question for the panel, which of those would you prefer?
Well, here's the other thing.
I know it's a weird question, but which of those two options do you think would?
Okay, I guess I would prefer having Von Doom. I mean, like doing it Kevin Smith style, where it's the same actor playing a different role, and we don't really acknowledge that he was a different character in a different movie. And I think that would be the preferable, because I think what they're going to do is that the spiritual essence of Tony in one universe is the spiritual essence of Von Doom from another universe. That's what I think they're going to do with it. So Von Doom and Tony are the same being in from different universes.
Film Theory was pointing out that I think they have at least one more movie to make with what's his name? Tom Holland. It may or may not be a huge emotional moment if, he were to take off that mask and suddenly Peter has to see his hero / father figure is now the villain that he's fighting. Yeah.
I would say out of the versions, and I'll say this, because I like Dr. Doom as Victor, I do not want him cheapened by being another character. So I will also say that the version of this scenario that I would accept is where they just use the actor and he's just, it's Victor. He's born in Latveria. And someone says, hey, you look a little bit like someone I recognize maybe at one point when the mask gets torn aside. You remind me of somebody. And that's like the furthest we ever go with that. If they make it core to the plot that Doom and Tony are connected in some way, I think that's where you lose me.
What does it?
That's
say that, but are any of us actually planning on watching this? I mean, I haven't touched anything in Phase 4.
I'm a big Doom fan.
There's
a strong chance. There's a strong. I don't know if I probably won't give Disney my money in the theater, but I will. It really will boil down to the answer to this question: how do they do it? And if they do it in a way that doesn't piss me off, I will probably see this movie. I like Doom a lot.
Mind you, this movie or like these 3 movies or whatever they happen to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing. There's one thing. There is one thing that this has going for it. One thing unilaterally has going for it. And going back to what Reese said with Doom being done dirty in all those other films. Every other time Doom's been done, he has been done dirty. And it's been like, man, that wasn't Doom, or he got clowned on, or this just sucks. The fact that they pulled out Robert Downey Jr. and are going to pay him like a good $8 gajillion, they're gonna want to at least get something out of that performance, which means that Doom is going to be given some respect in terms of he is going to be a threat, and they're going to cash in on that.
Well, I mean, he has to be the next Thanos.
They're not going to just beat him in a silly Squirrel Girl way and laugh at it. Right. They're going to be like, they're going to have to establish this guy as a serious, big problem. And that alone gives me a teeny bit of hope, because I've seen people clown on Doom in comics and clown on him in other media, and it pisses me off because he's supposed to be a serious threat of a character. And so I feel like them pulling out their ace in the hole here implies they really want to at least give that character some props. I do kind of like that. I'm trying to see the positive.
There's one thing that this image actually illustrates, and that is how, remember in the first Avengers movie, he mentions that Loki is a diva, and then he realizes that's the case with himself as well. Robert Downey Jr. is definitely good at playing a character who is grandiose, and that's what you want out of Doom. Right?
No, I'll tell you that they were actually considering for a long time. And this is the thing that actually makes me almost weep bitter tears. But there was, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a Dr. Doom solo film discussed some years ago. It got stuck in development hell. And they were going to have, what's his name? Who played Casino Royale. It was what's his face? Mads Mikkelsen.
Daniel Craig.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh yes.
They were talking about getting because Mads Mikkelsen had played a Hannibal Lecter, I think, in something. And so he had a profile, and they said, we need to get this guy to play our eerily European villain. Mads Mikkelsen, and I'm almost weeping. Mads Mikkelsen was born to play Dr. Doom. He has the gravitas. He has the acting chops. He has everything. And you put him, he even has this eerie sort of like, he's European, Eastern European. I don't know exactly where. I can't place that accent.
But he's from like Norway.
But like from an American perspective, you can just imagine him as an Eastern European villain, you know, and it just he sells the whole thing super well. And you just slap a mask on that guy, and he would have been Dr. Doom. And like I said, they were trying to make that project happen. And if you were going to do the whole route of using the same actor twice, he only played Caecilius in that one and done Doctor Strange role. You could have just put him in armor, never seen him, because again, the whole point of Dr. Doom is you're not supposed to really see him outside the mask. You could have still done Mads Mikkelsen. I would have really just why? It hurts.
Here's the thing. We all know Hollywood hates masks, right? Because they always want their FaceTime of their actors.
Well, kind of.
You know the temptation, at least, that will be there to show his face in like every other scene he's in.
No, they're not for Doom. They're going to save
they'll
it.
Be willing to cover him up for 3 movies and only take it off at that one moment? Or?
Yes, I do. I think because he's the character that you do that with. He's the one character that you really, really need to do that with.
But will they?
No, I think
maybe
so.
for $100 million. Yeah.
I think so. Because here's the thing. One of the reasons why that's been
well, the other thing,
let me finish. One of the reasons why they do that is because kind of what you were interrupting there. But it's the actors are always marketing themselves for their next gigs, and they know that part of that is their face,
right?
And so part of the reason why that ends up showing up in some of those contracts is because they want that. Robert Downey Jr. had already kind of walked away from the MCU.
Right.
He doesn't need as much of that marketing. His name is already immense already. And I don't know if he was in a sort of phase retirement at anyway. So the point I'm trying to make is that unlike other actors like Tom Holland, who it's like, dude, get my face out of this mask so I get my next 3 movies. Robert Downey Jr. is like, you could probably negotiate with him on this point and slap him in the mask. They're already paying him a gosh awful amount of money. Secondly, he doesn't need a whole lot more marketing.
So if that happened, then you're not going to get a lot of his likeness in those movies after all. And when you do take off the mask, he'll probably be all scarred and have a ton of makeup that makes him look very different than he does. So
he'll look like Deadpool.
I don't know.
Ryan Reynolds.
Maybe they could actually get away with just completely separating him from Tony entirely.
I will say they will give him prune face. That's the one thing. Right. Even if they show him outside the mask, they're doing the Wade Wilson Deadpool thing. They will give him prune face.
Oh yeah.
There's no way they're not going to do that.
It'll probably be like gray.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm trying to, because there's been a lot of negative talk about this. There's a lot of cynicism, and the cynicism may in fact be correct. I'm not even denying it, but I'm trying to provide an alternate, the most positive viewpoint even for the sake of argument.
Right.
I have to say, I do respect your dedication to fair-handedness.
I'm trying.
You realize it's only because it's Dr. Doom.
No, this has not been easy for me. When I first heard this news, my heart sank. I like this character a lot, and I was like, I just the idea that you could possibly conflate Tony and Victor, and I don't know. That just I'm trying here.
So, and here's the thing: is when I first heard the news, I was like, yes, this is the shark jump after the shark jump. This is the desperate, begging for attention on behalf of washed up elites who just are like, here, take your slop, fanboy, just eat it, just take it. We got your ketchup bottles on the next table. Come on, man.
So to be fair, we
like,
all knew that they would try to bring him back in some way at some point.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
because I don't care.
I had a feeling that
I was at least relieved to realize they weren't going to be trying to bring Tony back from the dead.
I'm not convinced they're not.
That remains, like I say, that kind of remains to be seen. Here's the one thing. I will throw one final thing here, which is this. One thing that makes me a little curious about this could upend the whole apple cart, because the buzz has been created. There's a third option in here that occurs to me.
Oh,
which is this. In film, you never show your full hand, because if you do, you've ruined the point of seeing the film.
Right.
That makes me wonder about this, because in theory, what they've done is show their hand, which automatically tells me that there is another card to be played with this. So what if there is an initial sell for Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, only to reveal at the end of the first Doomsday picture, it's Tony Stark. Tony Stark's Dr. Doom. And at the end of the film, someone steps out of the shadows, stabs that Tony Stark variant, and it's actually the real Dr. Doom, and it's someone else that they've pulled out of their back pocket.
Wouldn't spend $100 million for that.
I don't. What I'm saying is that the buzz has already paid off. So this allows them to do whatever the hell they want.
You're forgetting all the thirsty little MCU fans that are now like, ooh, it's RDJ, it's RDJ.
What I'm saying is this: film makes its money based on having another twist. So there is another twist to this. We don't know what it is. It could be good. It could be stupid. I don't know. But there is another twist to this, because they would never reveal the whole twist before the film is even made.
Well, it depends with, how bad Hollywood is and how bad Marvel is.
Highlight Nanji's point, because this plays to what I'm just saying.
Are they capable of that anymore?
Yes. Nanji brings this up. They did this with the freaking Mandarin. This is exactly what they did. So I actually I don't know.
That was like 15 years ago.
No, this is it's in their playbook. They do it once, they can do it again. In fact, it would actually make more sense for them to do it this time. So what I'm saying is that I'll ask the question to the panel: if they did this, if they pull a Mandarin and it's like, you thought it was Tony, but it's actually somebody else who was pulling the strings, how is your reaction to that?
If they do that, here's the risk that they are taking.
No. I'm asking you personally. How do you personally feel about that decision, Reese? What are you thinking?
Well, it all depends on what the thing is. I mean, like if as Halloweener pointed out earlier, the theory that it's all been Doom all along, and they can really sell that, right? Then I like being bamboozled by a mystery, So I could be okay with something like that.
And it's Mads Mikkelsen who comes out, I would cry.
I was really disappointed that they never, at least before I stopped watching. I don't know if I heard there was some rumor about it, but I was really disappointed that we never got to see the real Mandarin. And I heard that might have been part of the Shang-Chi movie that I didn't watch.
Yeah. The real Mandarin shows up in Shang-Chi.
So I didn't, but I was
end quote.
Yeah.
He's not the Fu. The problem is the fact that he's not the Fu Manchu version, which is what people like us really wanted to see.
Well, I didn't necessarily even care about the Fu Manchu version per se, as long as they could sell it as part of the the terrorist network that was hinted at in the first Iron Man movie.
the 10 rings, yeah.
And had actually gone into that. I thought that would have been kind of a fun one, but like I said, I was so soured by Endgame that I was just like, I had no interest in Shang-Chi.
Were you soured by? I don't know. I don't know if you've said it enough times. Were you soured by Endgame?
Oh my god! I actually have not, with the exception of I watched Avengers again for a school assignment, Other than that, I have not watched a single MCU film since I saw Endgame. I just have, I lost my entire taste for it. So,
Right. I will say personally, if they were to do what I just said and tease this idea, Doom is this alternate, and then later on we see Doom pulling out the wiring because he's been like cybernetically controlling this Tony guy the whole time. I'm okay with it. You've won me back. I've gone from it's so over to we're back. If you do that, if you pull that card out of your pocket, and it's like, actually, Doom was Tony, but actually it was him like mind controlling him the whole time, and it's actually this real Doom who's actually Victor, you'll have won me over, and I'm okay with the gimmick. I'm just saying, I'm just me giving full. I'm not the biggest fan of MCU. I'm not a big fan of Disney, but if you pull that off, I will give you the credit you deserve for that.
I think I'm like Reese. I'm too separated from the MCU at all at this point to care. It would just seem like they were replacing one actor with another for the exact same part, and I wouldn't get.
Well, that's why. But that's kind of what I'm part of my perspective on that is if a situation where they're able to really tell a compelling mystery, not necessarily meet every one of my notes or whatever, but if they're able to do that in a way that sounds good, I might be on to check that movie out if other people that are going to watch it pulls it out. I mean, that's just part of it.
By the way, this is me basically pulling a Doctor Strange, where it's like I looked at 6 million futures, and there's only one where this one.
Right.
So what I was going to say though was that
I understand this.
if you do that, who's going to play him instead? Because you basically risk having the biggest hyped actor playing a character ever suddenly replaced with anybody.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen. No, like they'll get okay. There is and this is actually what gives me more credence to maybe thinking this might be the case.
I think you would totally
there's
off.
Nah, fans. It'll create more buzz. I actually don't think this would cause. I don't. There'd be that initial "oh no, you didn't," but I think it'd be okay. They do this. And by the way, it is common for films to pull this type of thing to do this. Now, it is also common for this to backfire. So this might be a risky gambit one way or the other. I would appreciate this kind of a risk if they were willing to take it. But there's a lot of films. I remember, did anyone remember Godzilla 2014? Bryan Cranston was announced.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I did.
Bryan Cranston was announced. The guy from Breaking Bad, he was going to be the star of the picture. They kill him like 30 minutes in.
Right.
And it's still a really good movie. People still fondly go back to it, but there was
but that first half hour is kind of pointless to the movie.
No, it's
not. Except I don't actually think it was. I think they did a really good job of using Cranston to set the stage for the rest of the film, and like it really gave heart. I mean, it introduced the secondary character in a way that allowed him to naturally and organically take over.
It's also for a Godzilla film. It's also a really good risk to take because those films had gotten a bad reputation for basically being just doing the same thing over and over again. The Godzilla 2014 movie at that moment made you think anything was possible in a Godzilla movie of all things. And they promptly started repeating themselves again. So Gareth Edwards is I'm not saying he's a perfect director, but he's a director who has artistic vision, and he brought a vision to that film. Back to the point I'm making is the fact that it could be a risky decision. There is a deep bench of actors you could pull from. What's his face? Michael Fassbender would do a good Dr. Doom. Mads Mikkelsen, obviously fantastic. There are a whole bunch of other actors. Also,
one of the questions for in the chat, I think it was Fizz, said, "What would we think about Tom Hardy as Doom?" I wonder whether I think Hardy has the chops for the severity of Doom, the seriousness. I'm not sure I can see him in the ostentation.
I don't think he can do the voice. His portrayal.
Hold on, that also brings up another question. Will they change the voice?
Tom Hardy's they have to do something with the voice. Tom Hardy's voice that they did with Bane did not work out. So it very notoriously didn't work out.
Yeah.
Well, that's because Christopher Nolan wanted to do him to be some ambiguous person instead of the luchador.
I think they were scared to make him Hispanic.
I don't think it was scared. I think they really wanted it to tie into because they intentionally had him tie into the Ra's al Ghul aspect of the story they were bringing back around.
Honestly, in my opinion, Bautista probably would have done a better Bane for a couple of reasons. They had to do so many camera tricks to try
This
and
is also true because Tom Hardy's a little guy.
He is like at least
Right.
he is 2 to 3
The
inches.
problem was
Well,
Bautista
let me
was not a very good actor when they did that.
I feel like
he got a lot better after like a lot better after Guardians of the Galaxy.
I feel like Bautista could have done it because he's behind a mask and you're basically only seeing his eyes. And a director could have just said, "Do this with your eyes." You don't have to direct as much. And Bautista could sell the physicality of the role because, as you just mentioned, Tom Hardy was 2 to 3 inches is 2 to 3 inches shorter than Christian Bale. So they had
Christian Bale's not a big guy either.
Bale is bigger than. I looked it up once, and he's
Let's
not.
see. I mean, I don't think he's small, but I don't think he's like.
Just in terms
I don't
of height,
think he's 6'2".
He is.
Let's see here.
Where's his height? Why is it not coming up for me? Why are these people hiding their height now? I looked it up. He's 6 feet.
Why.
He's 6 feet even.
6 feet even. Okay. So he's taller than I realized. But.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's actually taller than you think. But Tom Hardy is like 2 to 3 inches shorter than that. Mm-hmm. And so you could tell if you go back and rewatch the scenes of Dark Knight Rises, every scene they put those characters together. They're using every one of those like foreshortening tricks to make Tom Hardy look like 6 inches taller than a man who he's actually shorter than. And that at a certain point starts working against the movie because, there's nothing better than reality. And Dave Bautista is just a big guy. So it just would have worked better. But back to Doom, you have a deep bench of actors with gravitas who could do the role. And then finally, I want to add to this to the mix. It would be a good risk. Again, I'm not saying they're going to take it. So there's chat's going to say I'm coping here, but it would be a good risk to take to have Robert Downey Jr. get stabbed or be revealed to be remotely controlled, and then to not reveal in that first film who is actually playing Doom. Because then you have a mystery of who's actually playing the character, which plays into who Doom is as a character. That would actually be a good maneuver, because then you wait a film to be like, who's actually playing this guy? And then people are guessing. And again, making Doom a mysterious figure is a good idea. So if they were to do that, I think it would also be a gamble that could pay off. Obviously, this could all just be cope. But by golly, I really would be nice if it were true. So.
Wow.
That's fun.
That is one heck of a gamble.
$100
million on a
we know they're gambling. Just announcing Robert Downey Jr. alone is a gamble. We know they're gambling. We just don't know how hard they're gambling.
Right. Well, we do $100 million.
Yeah, well, fair.
So from the chat, Colin says Henry Cavill is Dr. Doom. Sure, why not?
Cavill is just cursed though. It just makes me sad because he's such a genuine fanboy.
It's the curse of Superman. Never play Superman.
He's been cursed with just bad luck.
Life model decoy Tony Stark is Dr. Doom. That's fun.
Yeah, like Doom. Obviously, we're doing this thing. Even in this picture, we're doing
the real Doom is in the background. It turns out to be Henry Cavill. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I buy that. I buy
so
that.
Here, and Najee says to give some extra ammo to Tootless's point, the video games always portrayed Doom correctly. Marvel versus Capcom 3 comes to mind in particular.
Paul Dobson is a great voice. He also voices Doom in Fantastic Four, Earth's, is it not Mightiest, Greatest Heroes? One of those. It was by like a French studio. And Dobson voices, it's one of the best Dooms that we've gotten in media. It's really, really solid.
So, well, I think that's have we evaporated the talking points where I know we're just over an hour. I know you each said that you guys needed to keep it about that. So I don't know that we have anything else to say on it. But
Pegatron saying it's Disney, I'm going to be disappointed, and that's that. There's a strong. The only thing that gives me hope on that front is the first phase of Marvel. Like we're talking first Avengers film.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was before the sale, though.
Even into like Age of Ultron, up until that point, there was still enough magic in the pot for them to make something that I could go to the theater and enjoy. It was after that point that the well seemed to got poisoned. So what I'm saying is that some of the people who are responsible for some of that magic, I say some of those people are still around, and I think some of them might be being brought back. I don't know.
Okay, so we've definitely got some votes for Cavill here.
Yeah. With people, and even if they're not in terms of being Doom.
Yeah, but the problem with using Cavill is that you have to hide him behind a freaking mask, and it's like all the women are going to go, no, get him out of that. I got to see him naked. That's going to work against the character.
Tank says we're almost 10 years after the good time. Colin says I've never heard why you dislike Endgame. I don't want to go over it today, but I did a very extensive. I was a guest on a stream a while back ago. I don't know if it's still out there. I will see if I can't locate that stream where I go extensively point by point about everything I hate. It's about an hour and a half conversation with another fellow.
You have another 90 minutes.
It's as long as watching the movie. Tank says Cavill could be the Silver Surfer. There you go.
No, I think he'd make a good one of those.
Just use body paint.
That's a good point. He'd do good at that. No, I'm serious. I think he'd do a good voice on it too.
No, I think you're 100% right on that.
I think he'd do that role really well. That's a good call.
So anyhow, I think we'll wrap the show there. We do have some stuff for next week's show, but we have not nailed down exactly what it's going to be. I hope to have that announced before the weekend here. So that is the story. Man, my brain just skipped for a second. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody.
And until next time,
listen,
before Doom.
If you happen to have not liked or subscribed to this stream, you could do that. You could even invite your friends over if you wanted to check out the comic book goodness. I do have a couple more review videos that are going to be going up. And of course, one of these days I'm going to get back to making comics again. I've really been letting the readers down lately, but hey, that's the story. Play the kazoo. I have there is a video of me playing the kazoo on the channel, so that's a fact. Yeah,
To find that.
Yeah, I do play kazoo and bodhran to.
Wait a minute, are you kazoo kid grown up? Was
I a kazoo kid?
No, kazoo kid.
Oh, that guy? No.
Yeah.
Nope. No, I think the kazoo is a fascinating instrument that could be used more seriously and isn't, because it's also really funny and silly. So anyway, that's the show. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about before I shut her down?
I'm getting proofs for my newest Omega Girl issue, so hopefully that's coming out pretty soon.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. I have a character I'm basing off Dr. Doom. It's going to show up in the next major story arc coming out at some point.
Very cool.
Yeah. So if you like Dr. Doom, I've got a character for you.
Well, I have actually watched this character in development over the past 20 years now.
That's true. He's gotten way better.
It's Dr. Kazoo.
Yeah.
That's the one. Okay.
I have to say it's actually the next major story arc after my first major story arc. So it's going to be a little while before this guy shows up, but it's going to be.
Well, that's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. So Well, I guess that's everything. Unless Cartoonicus has anything last minute to add before I click that end button.
I'm good.
None may
Okay.
portray Doom except Doom.
Nobody kneels. Well, you see, that's nobody toots but Doom. Okay, wait, everybody.
Peace.
It's